news from the High Court is that Prince Harry has succeeded in his case, along with three others, in his case against Mirror Group newspapers. Evan Harris is a former director of the Hacked Off campaign, which has been one of the driving forces behind the attempts to rein in some of the worst criminal excesses of British newspapers, and has indeed been in court this morning. And Dr. Harris joins us now. It's hard to know where to start, Evan. So
it is indeed.
I suppose
judgment several hundred pages.
Yes. So are you telling me you haven't read it yet?
I haven't read it, but I've read
ridiculous.
a digest, and I've heard the judge digesting
it.
Well,
let me start with a simplistic question.
How big? My bingo card.
How big a deal is this?
Very big. I mean, it's highly significant, not just in respect to Prince Harry, where we'll focus, but on the more general or what are called generic findings, which were that editors knew about the phone hacking and the other unlawful activity, encouraged it, hid it, and lied about it. And he names names in the judgment, and you can guess one of the names. He's quite explicit about that, and I'll read you a bit so I can stick to the wording of the judge in a minute. He also found that the board knew, or at least the chief executive, Sly Bailey, and the head of legal and the company secretary, Paul Vickers, knew about this in the latter case from 2003 and in the former case from 2006, and didn't do anything about it, didn't stop it, and therefore gave evidence to the Leveson inquiry that was not true. I mean, I'm putting it politely.
Yes.
And in addition, Prince Harry was awarded aggravated damages for the fact that this could have been stopped and they were concealing it. So that's highly significant. Some of the wording, for example, around Piers Morgan is this. The judge said, I found Mr. Scobie, that's Omid Scobie, who, separate from writing his book, was a witness who said that he saw and heard Piers Morgan talk about phone hacking on the 3am desk when he was doing work experience there. Says, I found Mr. Scobie to be a straightforward and reliable witness and accept what he said about Mr. Morgan's involvement in the Kylie Minogue/Gooding story. No evidence was called by Mirror Group to contradict it. And later he said, the inference is an obvious one. Ms. Cantor, that's Ulrika's agent's phone, and the phones of her associates were hacked, and the obviously confidential and sensitive information obtained was passed to Mr. Morgan. This is about Sven Göran Eriksson, as you know, who must have known how it had been obtained and made use of it. Now, there's other references as well.
This is what the judge has written.
That's right. That's verbatim from the judgment, and that's the judge saying that he has proven that Piers Morgan knew about this activity and used it. And that is a flat contradiction of A, what he always says when attacking the people who are often people who are suing his old newspaper and criticising him, and in contradiction to what he said at the Leveson inquiry, which, remember, was evidence given on oath.
This is the offence that Andy Coulson went to jail for.
Well, Andy Coulson went to jail for phone hacking. What is alleged against Piers Morgan and others is not just that, but effectively the perversion of the course of justice, what Americans call obstruction of justice. Because if you
because
don't tell the
Leveson
truth under oath,
was a judge-led inquiry.
Yes, there's a perjury type offence in the Inquiries Act, but also the police were not told the truth because there was a police investigation into the Mirror, which decided to take no action. So altogether, there's a clear evidence, and Prince Harry, in his statement read by his barrister outside court, said that he expects the authorities to now do their job and investigate these individuals. And the judge made it clear that, Piers Morgan could have come to court, and he either didn't want to, or Mirror Group didn't feel they could put him on the stand to give truthful evidence. And therefore, there's no getting away from this. He can bluff and bluster all he likes. There is a judicial finding against him that is extremely serious.
Again, hard to know where to start unpicking this, but what were the Mirror Group hoping would happen? I know they were hoping that they wouldn't be on the hook in the way that they are, but what did their defence sound like? Because most people are going to be catching up with the detail of this case from the judgment as it's been handed down, and from what you've shared with us and what we've covered already, it looked like an open and shut case. So what was the Mirror Group defence in court?
Well, there were many issues at stake, and there
Yes.
was a crumb of comfort for them in some of the judgments, which I'll deal with. First, on Prince Harry, their position was zero of the 140 articles that he alleges were obtained unlawfully, of which a sample of 33 were considered by the judge. Zero were the result of this activity, and the judge found that 15 were proven of the 33, which you can scale up to 60 of the 140. That's a lot of articles were found to be a result of this, and awarded him, just for the 33, that fraction of the 140, £160,000 in damages. Now, Mirror thought that they thought that they could show that there was no hacking. They might have thought that they would get away with not being found that their senior executives and legal department knew about this, and they lost on that. But part of their aim, I think it's fair to say, was to say that these cases are too late, that the 6-year limit from when you find out about it to bringing it. And 2 of the claims fell into that 6-year delay, and the judge did dismiss those 2 claims. Now, I don't know whether that will be appealed. It's certainly a controversial ruling. But they can say, look, a lot of people should have known by 2015, when the first trial took place, that this was happening, and therefore there should be no more cases brought. Now, that's the crumb of comfort that they can take, but it's come at a huge price for their corporate governance judgment of their predecessor company, and at a huge cost in terms of widespread findings of illegality, including, by the way, the judge was explicit. I find that hacking and other illegal activity carried on up to at least 2011, even during the Leveson inquiry.
Did that surprise you?
That did surprise me.
Yeah, me too.
I've seen the evidence, so I'm not surprised. But I was pleased to see that the judge got that.
Yes. So it
did surprise me when I first saw it. Yes.
I'm sure it did.
They would have, closed shop and tried to limit the damage, but they just felt so much impunity. And this is the problem, because the press, as you've made the point yourself, the press don't report on the press. If this was any other industry, any other company, there would be calls for resignations from the press and for the police to take action. But that's the one thing you won't get from most of our newspapers.
Someone I know who has been a victim of phone hacking and who has been compelled to reach a settlement described it to me as discovering that hacking phones was like taking the lid off a pen for a huge number of journalists throughout all of this period. And we'll get on shortly to the very important fact that this is only one of a clutch of cases that Prince Harry is bringing against a variety of newspaper groups. But before we do that, and I don't know whether I'm leading you off your areas where you feel confident and qualified, but this quote here, clearly, you've alluded to, respectfully, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, respectfully calls on authorities, the financial regulators, stock markets, and the Metropolitan Police and prosecuting authorities to do their duty for the British public and investigate bringing charges against the company and those who broke the law. Can you, on a very personal perspective, can you conceive of circumstances in which they wouldn't do that?
I can conceive of, because we've seen it before. We saw it in 2006 when Clive Goodman and Glenn Mulcair were arrested, and they said it was one rogue reporter and just some royal stuff. Yet at the same time, there were people like Elle Macpherson and Gordon Taylor of PFA, who were definitely not royal, whatever you may think of them, whose cases were in that case. And then we saw in 2011, after that they gave up prosecuting the Mirror and didn't get to the bottom in respect of Mr. Murdoch's company of what we allege is widespread concealment and cover-up by, again, making the same false statements on oath and also destroying evidence. So yes, there is a history of this, and of course you've got politicians, many of whom are craven, either because they're fearful of bad coverage, or because they think wrongly that they can curry favour. Because the one thing I admire about some of our press is that They won't do the bidding of politicians, even if they say they will. They're like scorpions; they will eventually sting you as they carry you across the pond. And so you've got so there are circumstances. However, I think with the fact that you've got Prince Harry as a high-profile person, that you've got his action still against newsgroup newspapers due for trial in just over a year's time, and permission to proceed against the Mail, that the combination of those should prevent politicians from blocking the actions or seeking to block or putting pressure on the prosecution authorities and the police to not to do their job. And the police should know that they cannot repeat the errors of the past. That this should never have reached this stage because it should have been properly investigated 18 years ago, and it never was. But as I say, I think there's a real risk, and the public have to demand action.
And just run through the cases. Not let's leave the libel cases out of it and look at the illegal information cases. He's got one coming up against Associated Newspapers, the owners of the Daily Mail.
Right.
That's alongside Doreen Lawrence, Elizabeth Hurley, Sadie Frost, and Simon Hughes. And that's
in its early stages, but was given permission to proceed because the Mail tried to strike it out as too late, saying even though we weren't doing it, he should have known we were doing it earlier.
And then the newsgroup newspapers, one which Harry is bringing with Hugh Grant and
there's 50 other people.
And 50 other people. So
that's due for trial if it doesn't settle.
Yes.
Next January, and as you point out, people, if they're given large offers, have to settle or go bankrupt, as I've heard you explain this before.
Yes.
Because if you don't beat your offer in court, you end up having to pay the costs of the other side, and your insurers won't allow you to proceed if you're clearly not going to beat that offer, unless you have a huge amount of money and are prepared to take that loss. And it remains to be seen whether there's anyone in this group that will reject
that will take that risk, or rather accept
from Rupert Murdoch. Yeah. He spent over $1 billion so far in paying off people to avoid a trial.
So why didn't that happen in this case, in the Mirror case?
Well, because Mirror is a PLC, Reach is a PLC, so that they have some corporate responsibility currently, and they can't throw that sort of money at these cases. And also they thought they had a chance of running limitation. Now, newsgroup newspapers have the same opportunity to try and get a ruling on limitation, but that would require them to go to trial. And whatever happened to Piers Morgan today is, in my view, nothing like what would happen to his equivalent executives at Newsgroup, where the evidence, we say, and we plead in publicly available documents, is even stronger than took place in the Mirror. And that's why Rupert Murdoch is no fool. He knows that he has to spend over £1 billion actually now. Yeah. It's gone up.
There was another one last week, wasn't there? There was a big settlement.
Indeed, Chris Hugh, a former cabinet minister's phone was hacked while he was dealing with national security matters.
Although News Group, as they were, insist that they didn't do anything wrong, even as they pay out these billion
six-figure sums. Yeah. Exactly. That's the point. But obviously, people can see that they're paying for a reason. Now, they're not paying because they think they're guilty. They're paying to avoid being found guilty by preventing these cases coming to court. So
I think I'm worried about my lawyers now, to avoid the possibility of being found guilty when these cases come to court.
To avoid any findings being made.
Yes, to avoid any findings being made. Yes. There we go. There it is. So this is, crikey. So, I mean, under your reading of it, this isn't the biggest of the three balls that
are the smallest of the three.
The balls that are rolling. And we are in the foothills then, really, both in terms of impact and time, because, as you say, it's January 2025 for one of them, and not even certain that the other one will go to trial. So Prince Harry clearly in this for the long haul.
Yes, and I think he said that, because obviously he's paid a price, as he says in his statement, that that there's the journalism of vengeance being used against him, because whenever they attack him, and you can decide whether it's worthy or not, they never say that they're a defendant in a case he's brought, which you really ought to do if you're being transparent about your conflicts of interests. They never do, and they attack. Someone who was a guest, I think, on your podcast, Omid Scobie. They attacked Piers Morgan, laid into him on social media and his and his Murdoch TV platform without ever saying that Omid Scobie was a sworn witness against Piers Morgan in this Mirror trial, and the judge has sided with, who heard the evidence, has sided with Omid Scobie. You don't hear that. This is dishonest journalism.
As in, and no full disclosure in terms of the technical term as opposed to the podcast. So, again, from a personal perspective, how likely is it that Mr. Morgan's going to get his collar felt then?
Well, I can't predict.
No.
He has been a Houdini for some time, but this is the first time, I think it's right to say, that a judge has made findings that he carried out criminal activity. I mean, I've read you some of the elements. There are more.
You have, yes.
So I'm on safe ground saying that. And furthermore, it therefore follows, as night follows day, that he must have misled and given untrue statements to the Leveson inquiry, which was under oath. And he's still misleading the public in his protestations at the moment. He's never taken the opportunity to be cross-examined on this, and therefore, if the police do their job properly and the prosecution services without interference from newspapers attacking them or client politicians of newspaper owners putting pressure on the police, and it's an operational matter clearly, so there shouldn't be that interference, then he should be prosecuted, and he's entitled to a fair trial.
Absolutely.
But proceedings should be taken, in my view, and as implied by Prince Harry's statement, in his view. But that's not just him. Anyone who knows the history of what's gone on here recognise that it cannot be right to have a public inquiry where people don't appear to have, according to a judge, told the truth under oath, because where do we go?
What's the point of judge-led inquiries or public inquiries if they don't and are found not to have done so and don't
face? It's caustic to the rule of law.
Yes, it is.
It's caustic to our politics, and it's caustic to transparency in public discourse.
It's 10 to 12. Have we covered everything you feel we should have covered at this point, Evan?
No, but I think we've covered enough for most listeners.
Thank you. Well, we may catch up with you later or next week. Dr. Evan Harris, former director of the Hacked Off campaign, which has been providing assistance and support to many, if not all, of the claimants in all of these cases.
Welcome, my darlings, to Meghan and Harry Tales channel. I'm your host, Adrian, bringing you the latest on Prince Harry's groundbreaking legal journey. Today, we delve into a story that transcends the realm of royalty and speaks volumes about justice, accountability, and the pursuit of truth. This is not just a tale of a prince, but a narrative that resonates with anyone who has ever sought fairness in the face of adversity. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has long been a figure in the public eye. His every move, every gesture, scrutinized by the world. We have witnessed his journey from a young boy, growing up under the watchful eyes of the media, to a husband and father, striving to protect his own family from the same relentless scrutiny. Yet, behind the smiles and public appearances lies a tale of relentless media intrusion, a constant battle against the invasive lens of the paparazzi, a battle fought for years, culminating in a landmark victory against the Mirror Group newspapers. This legal triumph was not easily won. It was the result of years of perseverance and unwavering determination. This triumph, however, is not just a personal win for the prince. It symbolizes a broader victory for all those who have been wronged by unethical journalism. It marks a pivotal moment in the fight for media accountability, setting a precedent that could change the landscape of journalism forever. Holding a mirror to the unethical practices that have plagued the industry for far too long, this case has sparked a necessary conversation about the boundaries of press freedom. Harry's resolve to expose the wrongdoing shines a light on all of us to demand better, to hold those in power accountable, and to protect the sanctity of our private lives. At the heart of this legal battle lies the issue of phone hacking, a practice as insidious as it is unethical. This invasive act, often carried out under the guise of journalism, breaches the very core of personal privacy and trust. MGN, a prominent media group, stands accused of employing these tactics to gain access to the private information of Prince Harry and numerous other individuals. The allegations suggest a systematic approach to violating privacy for the sake of sensational stories. Imagine, if you will, The sanctity of your personal life, your conversations, your relationships laid bare without your consent. Every intimate detail, every private moment exposed to the world without your knowledge. The very notion sends a chill down one's spine. The fear of being constantly watched, the anxiety of having no safe space is a reality for many victims of such practices. For years, these practices remain shrouded in media power. His fight is not just for himself, but for all those who have suffered in silence, hoping for justice and change. Phone hacking, in its essence, represents a blatant disregard for individual privacy. It is a violation of one's most personal space, a digital trespass that leaves a trail of victims in its wake. The methods employed are as varied as they are cunning, ranging from intercepting voicemail messages to obtaining private information through deception. The impact on the victims can be devastating. Imagine the anxiety, the fear, the sense of vulnerability that comes with knowing your most private moments have been compromised. The emotional toll is immeasurable. Prince Harry's case shines a light on this often overlooked aspect of media intrusion, giving a voice to those who have suffered in silence. Section 4. A beacon of hope, Harry's victory and its implications. Prince Harry's victory against the Mirror Group is not just a personal triumph, it is a watershed moment for media accountability. This legal battle has far-reaching implications, sending a clear message that no one, not even the most powerful media entities, is above the law. The case has highlighted the importance of ethical journalism and the need for media organizations to adhere to strict standards of conduct. It underscores the necessity for transparency and accountability in the media industry, ensuring that the rights of individuals are protected. The verdict sets a precedent for their rights, knowing that they are not alone in their struggle. It compels us as a society to critically examine the role of the media in our lives. The pursuit of sensationalism, the insatiable hunger for scoops, cannot come at the expense of ethical conduct and respect for individual privacy. This case has sparked a broader conversation about the balance between press freedom and personal privacy. It has prompted media outlets to reflect on their practices and consider the impact of their actions on the lives of individuals. Harry's unwavering pursuit of truth serves as a beacon of hope, demonstrating that holding the powerful accountable is not an impossible feat. His victory is a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter the odds. Section 5. Voices of support. O'Brien and Harris weigh in. The significance of this victory is echoed by prominent figures like James O'Brien and Dr. Evan Harris, who have long been vocal advocates for media reform and accountability. O'Brien, a respected broadcaster and writer, has consistently challenged unethical practices in the media, urging for greater transparency and responsibility. Dr. Harris, a former Member of Parliament and a staunch defender of civil liberties, has been instrumental in raising awareness about the dangers of phone hacking and the need for stricter regulations. Their insights provide valuable context to Harry's case, highlighting its broader implications for press freedom and the public's right to know. Section 6. Beyond the headlines, inspiring action, empowering others. Prince Harry's story is not just about royalty, it resonates with everyday people who have been affected by media intrusion and the abuse of power. It reminds us that behind the headlines are real lives, real emotions, real consequences. His courage in taking on a powerful media group empowers others to come forward and share their stories. This victory is a step towards creating a media landscape that is more accountable, ethical, and respectful of individual privacy. It underscores the importance of holding those in power accountable for their actions, regardless of their status or influence. Section 7. A call for integrity, safeguarding truth in a digital age. As we navigate the evolving landscape of news and information, it is more crucial than ever to champion the principles of truth, integrity, and accountability. Prince Harry's victory against the Mirror Group serves as a potent reminder that we must remain vigilant in safeguarding these values. Let us use this moment to demand better from our media institutions to encourage responsible journalism that upholds the public trust. We must all play our part in shaping a media landscape that is both informative and ethical, one that respects the dignity and privacy of individuals while holding those in power accountable for their actions.